it
I'm the
away.
opposite. All right. Got it. All right. Well, Monica and everyone else, thanks for being here tonight. We're going to talk about mental health, why it matters, and we're going to go on the track of anxiety and depression. I thought that this was really important. I noticed a lot of new clients coming into HOFIT and a lot of clients that I have on my roster and how we talk about the struggles of anxiety and depression, the usage of antidepressants, anxiety medications, so on and so forth. And very similar to the birth control call, like Vicky had prefaced on there, I mean, it's not my job to tell you like antidepressants are bad or because everything is okay. It's just the approach that we have about them or the reasoning of why behind them. This is simply a call for education. I put on here, let yourself bloom, because I thought this was really cute. Whenever we learn to just let go and just be, that's when things start to fall naturally in our life versus just forcing them. So allow yourself to be, allow yourself to grow and to heal, and everything will be a lot easier in life. Okay, some of the stats that I was really shocked about. On the side here, no, number one, you are not alone here with anxiety and depression. Hannah thought this would be a good call for me to lead because this is something that I have been through myself, and I am someone who used to take medications. I have tried every SSRI under the sun, so I will get into that here in just a moment. But some stats here, 33.7% of adults suffer from anxiety, 23.4% of that being women. And overall, 43.2% use medications. So a very, very high usage of medications. Now with depression, because anxiety and depression are two different things, and we'll get into that in a moment here. Over 9 million Americans suffer from depression, and 47% use medication only. 32% seek therapy only, and 21% use both therapy and medication. So overall, we can see a common trend where we really rely on the medication to do the work for us. Maybe we're presented by Western medicine that it is more of a quick fix. Hey, take a medication, your anxiety will go away. Well, there's a lot of other natural ways that we can cope with it. So I will go ahead and, we'll talk about those here as we move along through this call. But I think right off the bat, it's important to acknowledge a common trend and medications are being pushed. And I don't think medications are necessarily a bad thing. Some people may need them, but we do have to understand the lingo maybe used around them, the side effects, the downsides, and maybe other ways that we can cope first before just putting everything onto a medication itself. I thought that the statistic of 32% seek oh no, sorry, 21% use both therapy and medication was pretty good. So there are people that are using both therapy, which is another form of coping, and maybe using a medication in correlation with that too. 1 in 8 women suffer depression, and women are more likely to experience depression than men. I think that just has to deal with our hormones, estrogen being more a little bit of an emotional hormone versus males. So women tend to be more emotional already to begin with. So our brain chemistry is just slightly different.
I
Hannah,
will,
go ahead.
yeah, I will agree there. I also feel like, kind of like men in general, they're supposed to present very like macho. I've got everything together. Like I don't have any mental issues. So while I
Sure.
do agree, like women, our chemical makeup is different, and like maybe we're more susceptible to these things. I also think guys are sometimes just more suppressed in our, in this line. So yeah, this is interesting. 9 mil,
Toxic masculinity.
100%.
Yeah. But men do suffer depression too and anxiety. So that is something to be aware about on this call. Always check in on your male friends, husbands, boyfriends too, because they go through things as well. All right. What is anxiety and what is depression? Maybe if you're watching this, you're not sure about what the difference is because maybe you're somebody where you've never experienced it, or maybe you're unsure of if you have anxiety or depression. So anxiety is a feeling of worry, nervousness, or unease. It can happen at an intimate event or a series of uncertain outcomes. So anxiety, anxiousness, I would say, even from personal experience and even from working with some clients who have anxiety, sometimes you have, I would say nervousness is maybe the best word. You are thinking a lot about the future, and you're always, I would say anyone who has really a type A personality can be a little bit more susceptible to even being more anxious. You know, you're constantly pre-planning, overthinking, always thinking about the future, always worrying about the future. What's going to be next? What's going to happen if I do this? Right? Depression is a mood disorder that can cause a persistent feeling of sadness and loss of interest. Depression happens whenever we're thinking too much about the past. Maybe we're really sitting with emotions of previous traumatic experiences. Maybe we're constantly thinking about what we went through in our childhood. Maybe we're really overthinking about something that happened yesterday or last week. My biggest piece of, I guess, advice there, or life lesson that I've really had to learn to cope with those emotions, recapping all of that, anxiety is when we're thinking too much into the future. Depression is whenever we're thinking too much into the past. We have to learn just to live right now and just be. The past already happened. We can't change it. Let go. The future is not guaranteed. We're not guaranteed that we're going to live tomorrow. So it's silly to worry about that, right? Whenever we think about it, why are we worrying about things that couldn't even happen? Or they might not even get a chance to happen, right? So live in the moment, focus on the right now, because the right now, where you are right now, is exactly where you need to be, and it is the most important place to be. All right, getting into some medications. Medications for anxiety and depression can be described by a healthcare professional, by a doctor, a primary care doctor, or even by a psychiatrist. A therapist can maybe give recommendation, but they will have to refer you to a psychiatrist to actually have the prescription be given to you. So they might be able to tell you, like, okay, have you thought about medications? Or maybe this one could help you, but they have to go through a psychiatrist or a primary care doctor to actually have the prescription. After taking assessments that can diagnose anxiety or depression. From my personal experience, you have to go through testing. It's typically one that you fill out on your own. The therapist will, or whoever you're seeing, the primary care doctor, will score it. Based off of that, you could be recommended or prescribed a medication. Anybody else have any experience with that? Do they just hand it out willy-nilly, or are they still pretty strict about having testing beforehand?
I went to just like a behavior, like family therapist for a little bit, and she wasn't necessarily pushing it, but she did bring it up like quite a few times. I didn't necessarily take a test or anything, but she was like,
Okay.
if it will just get you out of the hole and kind of get you to baseline, then you can start functioning. And like, I personally never thought I was like that low to need it, but I did find it kind of strange that she brought it up in like multiple sessions
Sure.
when I didn't bring it up. But I don't remember taking like a test or anything specifically.
Hannah, that brings up a good point, because when I went to my primary care doctor my first time, they had me take a test. But then whenever I was doing therapy on my college campus,
Mhm.
she said the same thing about maybe it can just take you out of a hole for the time being. So it, again, it's presented as a quick fix. Think about it as us saying, okay, well, if we chop down to 1,200 calories, then maybe we can lose about 10 pounds, you know, just to get you out of the hole, and then we'll go from there. Right? It's all about the kind of quick fix approach. Again, medications can be helpful to a lot of people. I'm not knocking the usage of medications completely, but more so just building education and awareness and learning how to become your own advocate with these things, right? Because a lot of the times, unfortunately, Western medicine may not have our best interest, and all of the things that I'm about to explain to you, and side effects and long-term side effects and usage, are things that, if maybe you're on a medication, they were probably never presented to you, right? Very similar to birth control, or really anything else as well too. Very popular types of medications that you may or may not be familiar with might be Xanax, Klonopin, Librium, Lexapro, Prozac, Zoloft, Paxil. I've probably taken every single one of those on those lists and then some. My own experience with SSRIs personally, I did not have a good experience. Every single one that I've taken, I've tried them from the ages, I think I was 13 until I was a little over 21. I had the negative side effects of all of them. Immediate weight gain. I felt like a zombie. It didn't matter what time of day I took them. If you're feeling like a zombie, they'll tell you to take them at night before bed. That way you can kind of sleep it off, quote unquote. It still never worked for me. Um, it made my anxiety worse. It made my depression worse. Very, very bad to the point where I was hospitalized because my anxiety was so uncontrollable. And I was on medication at that time. So for me personally, I had the complete opposite effect. They did not help me at all. But I know other people where they have, they have helped in certain ways. Um, Side effects and downsides with the medications. We can have indigestion, loss of appetite, dry mouth, blurred vision, shakiness, weight loss or weight gain, sexual dysfunction, and insomnia and troubles sleeping. So I pretty much had, for me personally, indigestion, loss of appetite, weight loss, weight gain, insomnia, shakiness. And side effects will vary per individual, just like any other supplement, just like any other medication. They all have their side effects and they all have their downside. They all have their pros and they all have their cons. Um, Now let's talk about some long-term side effects here.
Liv, before we
Yeah.
go any further, I just want to thank you for like sharing your personal journey with all of this. It probably doesn't like seem like anything to share it, but it is a big deal. So I just wanted to first recognize that. And then Monica put in the chat, I feel like
Oh,
these
sorry.
medications have become such a common thing, even with children. And I 100% agree. I think the
Mhm.
conversation of mental health has become a little bit more mainstream, and it's so easy to coin like a young individual experiencing bouts of anxiety and just saying, oh, I have anxiety, or I'm having bouts of depression. Oh, I'm just a depressed person. And when we hear those things, and we go to the doctor, maybe they have our best interests at heart and maybe they don't, but their job is to treat the symptom. It's not the root cause. It's not to give them tools in their toolbox to like help navigate these depressive or anxiety spells. It's to treat the symptom. And so maybe they think they're doing it the right way, but I think it's just causing more and more issues for our youth. Getting on birth control and getting on SSRIs, and then being in this diet culture of cutting your calories down drastically. We have a downregulated metabolism, we have a downregulated hormones, we have downregulated everything. And then it's like, no wonder we're, struggling with fertility issues now, and, all kinds of health issues and diabetes and disease. It's just, I don't know. It's so easy for us to piece together, but it just seems like such a bridge when it comes to like what we do, and then obviously the medical field right now.
I also think too, just to piece off of that, and Monica, I always forget that you work with in childcare pediatrics, right? So
Mhm.
you do have that firsthand experience. And I feel like anxiety and depression is looked at as cool now. Like it's cool.
Mm.
And everybody has anxiety, everybody has depression. It's how we control it, and it's how we control it, it's how we navigate it, it's how we cope with it, essentially. Okay, so everybody can have bouts of anxiousness, right? Maybe when you have a really long to-do list or something, maybe you can have like a bout of anxiousness or what have you. So I feel like for kids and teens, they might have a bout of anxiousness. Maybe it's about the prom, or maybe it's about the homecoming dance and who's going to ask them or who they're going to go with. Maybe it's about sporting events or what have you. And they take that one bout of anxiousness and they run to the doctor and then they get a medication for it. And there's like, okay, well, we just have one bout of anxiousness, right? One moment, which is normal to have. Every human goes through that. Every human, we have ins and outs every day of stress, of anxiety. It's all about what are we doing to manage it so it doesn't become chronic, right? Um, so I definitely think it is almost like a trendy thing nowadays. I feel like birth control is trendy. I feel like SSRIs, anxiety, depression, it's all very trendy. And we're doing all these trendy things and wondering why, like Hannah, you just said, and like I talked about on my Instagram today, wondering why we can't lose weight, wondering why we have to go down to 1,200 calories to lose 1 pound, wondering why we're having thyroid problems, infertility, we're losing hair, we're getting bad skin, we're getting acne, all of the things. Vicky, what do you want to add to that?
I I'm laughing. It's not a funny subject, but the fact that you said it's trendy, I saw an ad on my Instagram today for a shirt that said my neck, my back, my anxiety attack. And I was like, you've got to be kidding me. Like it's just we've taken it so far. And I love you guys' analogies about like I don't necessarily think that medication is always a quick fix, but with like, for example, like weight loss meds, like your metformin, your Wegovy, your that type of stuff, like those are supposed to be tools for short term. And I think you're about to talk about it in this slide. Like if you look up anxiety or antidepressants, like those medications, they're only supposed to be used for 8 to 12 weeks, but nobody ever tells you to come off of them. And then
Right.
nobody's helping you deal with the side effects of coming off of them because you're going to lose all your serotonin and you're going to be really, really, really messed up for a little while. There's just no tools to help you not ever come off of them. So it's just wild to me that it's gotten into this. Like I can't tell you how many people I know who have been on antidepressants for decades and they don't know anything different because nobody ever told them like, hey, you're only supposed to use this for like 12 weeks tops.
Right, right. And whenever you come off it, you can't just cut it cold turkey. Just like with anything, you have to be careful in how you cycle off of it. I know because I cut it cold turkey one time. My therapist freaked the hell out on me. She was like, "What do you mean you cut it cold?" And I was like, "I don't care. I'm done." I was okay, guys. I mean, but still, like, yeah, you can't cut it cold turkey either. Let's talk about some of these long-term side effects. So, like Vicky said, 8 to 12 weeks, right? We're supposed to cycle off of them. Well, sometimes we're not taught that. We are not told that. Why? Because it's money and it's a big check for Western medicine to continuously keep somebody on a medication and to make them sicker. Um, so feeling dependent on the medication. We never want to feel dependent on anything. We don't want to feel dependent on alcohol. We don't want to feel dependent on drugs. We don't want to feel dependent on medications or fad diets, right? Not practicing other ways to cope or not attempting mindset work because the medication is presented as a quick fix, right? So sometimes we jump on the medication before we can try maybe, working on our mindset or going to therapy. We're going to talk about a bunch of different ways to cope or maybe things we can add in to incorporate with the medication. That way, whenever you do come off within that 8 to 12 week time frame or whenever you are ready to come off, um, that you are working on other ways to promote serotonin and to have healthy levels of dopamine, so on and so forth. Weight gain is a long-term side effect. Long-term usage of SSRIs and other anxiety antidepressants medications can actually cause insulin resistance. This creates metabolic resistance, which leads to weight gain. So it has an effect on our blood glucose levels, on our sugar levels, which can cause weight gain over time. Low sexual function. It will change and alter our sex hormones, causing decreased libido. I didn't want to get too sciencey here, so I just put a quick, I mean, I could have probably done a whole presentation on just the science behind that, but just to kind of save everyone here and keep it pretty mainstream education. The decreased or low libido, this is caused by the SSRI impacting our nitric oxide and receptors along our spinal cord, which can clinically manifest low libido and sexual dysfunction. So essentially saying SSRIs, anxiety medications, they affect our neurons. They affect our neurons that are aligned in our spinal cord and in our gut as well too. And we're going to get into SSRIs and the gut here as well. But they affect those receptors, leading us to have damaged receptors, and we have lower hormonal function, low thyroid function, low sexual function as well too. SSRIs and the gut. The reason why I wanted to have just a slide for this, I feel as though everyone who I talk to who is on an antidepressant, whether they're a client or not, the first thing that always comes up is, I've been feeling so bloated lately. I'm having I feel constipated all the time. I feel like I have so many food sensitivities. I'm going to go get an allergy test done. And it's not that you're allergic to the foods. It's not that you can't eat gluten. It's not that you can't have ice cream. Girl, it is the SSRI, most likely. I did not know this, so this was really cool to figure out, but SSRIs are known to be one of the top medications correlated with gut dysfunction. They have more damage on the gut than birth control, which was kind of crazy to me.
I did not know.
Yeah, they affect our enteric neurons and lower our antimicrobial properties that line the gut, lowering our amount of good gut bacteria. We want to have a good balance of good and we have good and bad gut bacteria. We have to have a plentiful amount of good gut bacteria to help pass things along your intestinal tract. So SSRIs and a lot of other medications suppress the amount of good gut bacteria that we have. So this could cause you to maybe feel more constipated. This could cause you to maybe have IBS, be a lot more sensitive to certain foods. And the food isn't the problem. It's that we don't have enough good gut bacteria to be able to break food down.
And
So
then if we can't break the food down, then we can't absorb the nutrients. And if we don't have enough good gut bacteria, then we're predisposed to things like candida overgrowth,
C.
H. pylori, SIBO, dysbiosis, leaky gut, and that's a secondary byproduct of weight gain. You're not absorbing your nutrients. You're not getting the nutrients that you need. Vitamin, mineral imbalance, hormone imbalance can be downstream of that. I mean, you're right, Olivia. This is definitely not uncommon with even like if you took NSAIDs, like over-the-counter anti-inflammatories, chronically, which I definitely did as a kid. I was popping those things like candy. That can mess up your gut lining, mess up your good gut bacteria and all that. It's like a lot of prescription medication and even over-the-counter stuff can be really, really hard on the gut.
Like Tylenol, Advil, that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's wild.
For sure. So this whole, just to know that it's one of the top medications correlated to gut dysfunction was pretty interesting to me personally.
I wonder if it's also like, is it because, I don't know if you know this, but is it because of the fact that it's messing with our brain chemistry and there's that blood-brain barrier between the gut and, yeah, okay, interesting.
I'm assuming so.
Crazy?
The study that I pulled up didn't mention that. They may not have wanted to mention that. I'm not sure. But obviously, I think the overall theme here too, like if we're having low hormone function, it's because of the chemistry. It's because we have suppressed serotonin levels. We don't have enough dopamine. A lot of it has to do with the brain chemistry as well, for sure.
Yeah, because even just like high perceived stress can lead to, when you think about it, like when I think about like stereotypical chronically stressed people, like in movies, they always have an ulcer,
Yeah.
and it's because stress can lead to gut dysfunction. So I'm like, oh, okay, I'm just kind of making that correlation there that like it's because of the fact that it's messing with your brain chemistry that it messes with your gut.
Yeah, and I mean, also maybe if somebody has chronically high anxiety, chronic high stress, which those two kind of go together, we can expect maybe an effect on the adrenal glands at some point too, right? We're constantly in overdrive, we're constantly in fight or flight, which really over pushes that as well too. But a byproduct of that is, a dysregulated thyroid and a dysregulated metabolism, insulin resistance, and then it starts to affect the adrenal glands. Cool. Alrighty, ways to cope. So now we're going to talk about things that we can start to pair along with the medication, what to do whenever we start to come off that medication. Now, if you are coming off of a medication, please have medical help. That is not our job as coaches to cycle you off an SSRI or an anti-anxiety med. That is outside of our scope of practice. So make sure that you have help with a healthcare professional, whether that's a psychiatrist, or whether that's your primary care doctor or whoever you go to see that is inside of their scope of practice to be able to do something like that. But these are great things that we can do. Maybe you are willing to try these things before seeking out a medication as well too. One of the things is therapy. Seeking help from a healthcare professional and talking through traumas, experiences, triggers helps you understand the why. Because we have to get to the root cause of, why does this certain event trigger me? Why am I constantly thinking about my traumas? How did my traumas in my past environment currently shape my environment now as an adult? So we start to, unravel and storytell and talk about all of the things that we have gone through from childhood to adult life. A lot of what we don't know is, the way we are right now and how we present ourselves as adults. A lot of our habits and our lifestyle is from our childhood upbringing and our experiences too. Okay, exercise. That's why you're here with HOFIT, right? So we talk about exercise and nutrition and the importance that they have on our bodies, but the importance that they have for anxiety and depression as well. Lifting, walking, fitness classes, swimming, running, yoga, they all help us build confidence. They all strengthen us. They lower inflammation, and they help manage stress as well too. So they build confidence, which strengthens our root chakra, which is our grounding and it's our grounding chakra, and chakras are energy. So whenever we are out of alignment with our root chakra, which your root chakra is your base chakra. Sorry, not to get into too much chakra stuff here, but it is really important to kind of know, when we are out of sync with exercising, lifting, walking, we are less confident, we have less strength there. We are a lot less grounded, which can cause higher levels of anxiety and depression. And that's the energy that we perceive and that we start to portray to everybody else around us as well too. So we want to become back in tune with that. We want to start with getting grounded. Okay.
Olivia, really quick. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but
No,
I don't
okay.
know really anything about chakras. So if you're, get me a quick cliff notes on that. If you're not grounded, that energy goes up. That's
Yes.
kind of what I'm getting. Okay, got it.
Yeah, no, that's very good. I'm glad that you picked that up, Vic. So chakras, very briefly here, that's not the point of this call. But I will, since I mentioned it here, I will kind of go a very quick synopsis here. Chakras are energy. So it's the energy that we really give off. You have your 7 main chakras, but we actually have thousands of them. And they start from your pelvic floor and go up. So your most important one, the pelvic floor, the one that grounds you, the one that carries all of the other ones, that is your root, your base chakra. And strengthening that chakra, strengthening that energy comes from exercise. Okay. Then you have your chakra above that, which is your sacral chakra. Then you have your solar plexus, your heart chakra, your throat chakra, your third eye, and then your crown. So your solar plexus chakra, which is located in your gut area, correlates to nutrition, which is my next one. So this stabilizes hormone function, gut function, mood, and energy. And I'm going to get into, I have another slide here about foods that can help us reduce anxiety and that are good for somebody to incorporate if they maybe have higher levels of anxiety. But we know that nutrition overall too, that helps build our confidence. Whenever we are fueling our bodies properly, we feel more energized. We are in a better mood. I think every client that I have, and Vicky, you can probably relate, and Hannah too, their first ever check-in is always like, I feel so much better this week because it's my first time ever, like, meal prepping, meal tracking macros, or whatever program that I have them on. That's the first thing they notice is how much better of a mood that they're in, and it's because they're making healthier choices, right? Meditation and breath work. This engages our parasympathetic nervous system, which naturally slows and calms us down. Anxiety is very correlated to your breath. When we are more anxious, we have trouble finding our breath. We can maybe experience that we have a tightened chest. We're gasping for air sometimes whenever we are having a panic attack or an episode. I have been there many times myself. have to find our breath. And whenever we practice breath work every day, and breath work doesn't have to be this 30-minute series or anything, it can just be for 2 minutes a day, 3 minutes a day, 5 minutes a day. When we start to practice that breath work, we are training our nervous system, we are training our parasympathetic nervous system to have better control over our breath. We are in control much more than what we give ourselves credit for, or much more than we think. I feel like it is very almost, I guess, common, I guess maybe we can call it trendy in society, to play the role of a victim and to blame everything on the emotion. Little do we know how much more control that we actually have. And I hope that that doesn't sit the wrong way with anybody that's listening to this, because I wish somebody would have told me these things back whenever I was suffering. I blamed everything on the emotion. I'm just depressed. And I don't know, it'll just go away whenever it goes away. I'm just anxious, right? And that's just how I am. Don't allow those emotions are okay to have. They're okay to recognize them and to work on them. Be aware of how much we are allowing them to label ourselves, and how much we are allowing those things to have control. When little do we know, whether you think it or not, whether you have the confidence to believe it or not, you are in the most control of your life. You are in the most control of your emotions. Vic,
And
go
to
ahead.
add to that, Liv, yeah, like I think one of the reasons why we're not just trending in the direction of like everybody's super anxious, everybody's really depressed, is because like we're not ever checking in with ourselves. We're not ever self-regulating. We're too distracted. We're too busy. We're too stressed. We're too overwhelmed. Nobody's really taking the time to slow down and check in. Like, what am I feeling? Am I breathing through with my chest? Am I breathing down with my belly? Is my mind clear? Am I thinking clearly? Like, this is where the meditation and breath work can be paramount, because it gives us an opportunity to like introspect for a moment and just check in with ourselves. Like 500, 800 years ago, like we didn't have this type of stress and overwhelm. This is why, you know, many generations before us, people were so creative. They were so scholarly. They were so artistic. Like we don't have the opportunity to tap into our full potential. And it starts with just checking in with yourself. So
Right.
I think this one goes a really long way.
Well,
I feel
comparison kills creativity. So when we're always on our phones, and like when we do get a 10-minute window to like check in with ourselves or not be working or entertaining or whatever, like the first thing we do is get a dopamine hit from Instagram. And
The
when
phone.
we are, draining our dopamine receptors, there is no room for creativity. There is no room to check in with yourself and ask you how you're doing. So it makes total sense.
I
Yeah,
feel like
I'm
this
just as guilty as the next person, but it's just it's so depressing. Like, I mean, ironically, it's depressing, but it's very sad when you think about it. It's like we are selling ourselves so short by getting these, like you said, these instant dopamine hits. We don't need them.
right. And this call, I feel like, piggybacks off of the one that Hannah just led, about self-care. Right? Because now we're talking about, like, on the side here, I loved this little graphic that I found. Self-care isn't selfish. We're also made to think that it's selfish to put ourselves first. And it's not. How can we expect ourselves to show up our best self if we're not filling our cup first? You know, I take pride in that. I will do my yoga class. I will work out first before I open up my computer and start serving my clients. Because if I don't take care of me first, I'm not going to be able to show up as my best self in my check-ins. I'm going to be anxious because I'll get carried away with work. I check the clock. It's 7 o'clock at night. I realize I maybe haven't eaten dinner. I haven't worked out yet, because we get carried away with work, right? So before we get so caught up and carried up in our routines, and everybody's schedule is different. Maybe that's just me, where I have to focus on myself first in the morning before I can then serve everybody else for the rest of the day. And it's even to the point where when we got a puppy, when we got Gemma, I was waking up, I had, your schedule changes. I have to take her potty first. I have to feed her first and do that first. Michael now does that for me because it affects. So now he wakes up and he takes her out first. So that way I can have my morning to myself, right? Because it definitely makes a huge difference. The last thing I have on this page is also journaling. Maybe, and again, not all, you don't have to do all of these either. Maybe just find one or two things that really sit well with you. I've tried journaling. It's really not my thing personally, but it works really well for a lot of other people. Brain dump, get your thoughts out. I think Hannah really enjoys doing this. But write down how you're feeling. Maybe write down, you know, maybe something happened and it caused you to think about a traumatic experience from whenever you were a child. Write it down, talk about it. It's okay. It's okay to have those traumas, those experiences, and everything else resurface. Emotions are normal. We are human beings. It is okay to feel anxious. It's okay to feel depressed, but it's just how we handle and navigate those emotions. Grounding, and this talks again once about like our root chakra there, not to get too like woohoo with you guys, but connecting with nature can really help. How do we connect with nature? Well, we can garden outside. We can, my Reiki energy healer that I told me, he considers having a pet as connecting with nature because pets are from Mother Nature, I guess. So whenever he was talking about ways that I could be better grounding myself, he was like, "You have a puppy?" And I was like, "Yeah." He goes, "So that's a good way that you're already connecting with Mother Nature because pets are so innocent, I guess." So that can count too. But walking outside, in bare feet. So if you stand in the grass and if you take your shoes off, that's grounding yourself and that's connection with nature. So you can stand in the grass barefooted and maybe do some breath work if that's what you prefer to do. Okay, fresh air and sunshine are proven to lower stress, reduce our nervous system, and improve our mood as well too. So getting that vitamin D is really good for us. If you live in a sunshine-based state like Vicky does, she lives in Florida, except it's raining in Atlanta and it's raining in Florida right now. So, but winter time, time of year, maybe you can't get out as much and ground yourself. So I wouldn't get too set on always grounding yourself or always just one thing, like maybe outdoor activities or what have you, because some of those things can be weather permitting. So I would still find other things that maybe aren't as weather permitting, maybe like listening to a podcast, maybe journaling, reading a book, other things that we've already mentioned too. We can
Olivia,
do out. Yeah, go ahead.
sorry to interrupt. One of my clients too that deals with some of this, she lives in a rainy climate and she has a sun lamp. And those are really cool. I don't know if you've ever seen any of those, but those are those products that like can help us with circadian rhythm. So I think it's really important, just kind of as a side note, that if you struggle with depression in particular, really honing in on circadian rhythm health, I think is a game changer because it boosts the serotonin in the morning. It's resetting your circadian rhythm resets your brain chemistry. So you get sunshine in the morning or you expose yourself to a sun lamp if it's the winter months or whatever, you're going to get that natural serotonin production from the sun. Like it's kind of crazy that every tool that we need is found in nature. I was Hannah, I said it in the chat. I was saying it publicly. I said, grounding yourself, taking a bunch of mushrooms in the forest. But like
in the forest.
Not to get into like plant medicine. I'm not like a huge like hippie plant medicine advocate or anything like that at all. But you know, everything that we need can be found in nature. You know, it's just that we get so far away from it. But that early morning sunshine, like you had said, it can be a game changer. And then even those tools like sun lamps and stuff, those are useful.
Well, we're
Yeah, I love
animals.
that.
I mean, it makes sense. Like we're animals. We're supposed to be outside. We're supposed to be eating single ingredient foods. We're supposed to be moving our body. We're supposed to be connecting. And it's just, we've gotten so far away from some of these like innate things that we need as humans. So yeah, this is definitely getting.
I was also thinking, you guys just brought it up to me. Plants, having indoor plants. It's a huge thing for women now to have plants inside of their house. So that would be another way of connecting with nature too, I feel like. So maybe you like to, I have gardening on here, for outdoor activities. So yeah, you could garden outside, but maybe you're like me and you're in an apartment and you don't have a yard to garden in. You can have indoor plants, maybe like a snake plant. I have orchids on my windowsill. What's the other one? Oh, I forget. Oh, a succulent. I have some succulents too. Those might be good to have as well too.
One of my good friends lives in New York City, and she has one of those like little hydroponic plant kits
Yes, cool.
on
Yeah.
I actually just saw this amazing new product that I don't even know if it's really like if you can buy it yet, but it was like called like a Shruly, and it's like this indoor mushroom grower, not the psychedelic mushrooms, but like it was so cool to be able to see mushrooms growing in this like really aesthetically pleasing glass case. I'm like, I need me one of those. Monica, you unmuted. Were you going to say something? We've just been chittery chattery over here.
Yeah, I was gonna actually say, so I've noticed like talking about sunlight, so I can tell a difference like when it's winter time and it's like more cloudy, like in my energy levels, like when it's like sunny outside, I feel like, oh, I'm like more happy, and in the winter time I feel like I'm just like more like, I don't know, almost like seasonal depression, like more sad, more, I don't know. You could tell like a big difference. So that's all I was gonna say.
No, thank you for
Yeah.
sharing. That's a very, very real thing. I think it's also just we're not as active in the winter months. So if we're not getting that vitamin D exposure, that can really, really affect our mental health. So it is a very real thing. I think people coin it as like seasonal depression, but it's just seasonal deficiencies, really, is what it is.
Mhm.
Yeah.
For sure. Thanks, guys, for sharing all of that. Outdoor activities, hiking, like I said, gardening, maybe housework, skiing. I put boating because it's summertime and I just thought about that. There's so many outdoor activities. Pickleball could be another one, tennis, volleyball, soccer, maybe kickball like Vicky does. So maybe there's so many different things that we can get involved in. Finding an activity essentially that really works well for you and that fits into your lifestyle. Podcasts are a great way to redirect our brain into focusing on something else rather than living in the negative and focusing on worries, fears, and frustrations. So, fun fact about our house here, we never sit in silence. Michael's always playing a podcast. He always has a podcast in his ears. Maybe I'm playing something on my phone, like, because it redirects your brain always. So instead of just whenever we sit in silence all the time, we start to think, we start to overthink about the past, about the future, all the things that we have to do. Versus if I'm listening to a nutrition podcast, I'm focused on learning about nutrition, and it's taking my time away from focusing on my past or things that are going on in my current life that maybe aren't going too well, or whatever the situation is. So podcasts and YouTube videos or whatever are a great way to redirect our brains. Once again, just to put the focus onto something else. And if we were to sit down and think about how much time we spend a day focusing on the negative, it's pretty silly how much time we waste there, right? What do we gain from it? Ask yourself that question. What am I gaining from thinking about stuff that has happened 5 years ago and I can't change it? I have no control over that. The past is the past. Why am I putting myself in a downward spiral overthinking about something that happened long ago and I'm getting depressed about it, right? So, focusing on redirecting can be super, super helpful. Bilateral stimulation music, yeah. There's also, what is it called? Brown noise or something, or it might be white. No, I think it's called brown noise. If you search it on Spotify, it's a meditation music noise that allows you to fall asleep. So it stimulates your parasympathetic nervous system and it works. I've done it before. I saw it on Instagram and I tried it right away and I was knocked out.
Don't even remember, it knocked me out so fast.
Yeah, guys, I really don't. I really don't. Music and dancing, maybe you want to play some music, dance, get creative. It naturally boosts serotonin once again, redirects us into more uplifting and positive energy. Music and dancing is naturally very upbeat and uplifting. Movement is helpful in increasing dopamine as well too. So maybe when you're making breakfast in the morning, maybe you kind of dance around, play some music. Maybe in the middle of your workday if you work from home, or maybe if you don't care if you're in an office, you get up and you dance around and you move around. I categorize my next one as expressive work, and I put this coloring, drawing, painting. It all refocuses our attention. I actually mentioned this to a client when I was listing off to her different ways that we could work on mindset. And she tried the adult coloring book idea, and she said that she's never been so obsessed with something in her life. And she was like, thank you for that recommendation. And I don't know, I always really liked coloring and stuff too, getting those adult coloring books, but it's almost like whenever we feel stressed, we have to recognize that emotion and just say, okay, not worth it right now. I'm going to redirect and I'm going to do something else. Maybe I'm going to get out my coloring book. Maybe I'm going to listen to a podcast. I'm going to dance. I'm going to go garden, or whatever your form of coping is.
I think creating, I mean, back to what I said earlier, like when you're in that comparison mode, when you are overthinking and overanalyzing, or you're thinking of the past or being anxious about the future, you're not present. So creating, you have to be present with that activity in front of you. And this is why I love dancing so much. And I really feel like dancing has almost become a form of therapy for me in the last year. Like I got into pole dancing because I just wanted to be more in my body and less out of my head, or less in my head. And it's really done that for me. And I also think like I'm so structured and regimented throughout my day, and with my business and with my routines and with, data tracking and all of these things. And even when I get into the gym, bodybuilding is very structured. It's very slow. It's very controlled movements. It's all like, yes, we have some unilateral work, but it's all very balanced. Whereas dancing, you don't have a routine. You just turn on music and you tap into your body and you just kind of let it free flow without the pressure of like being even on both sides. And it really has been such a surprising coping mechanism for me when I'm feeling stressed. So this one was great too, Liv.
Yeah, it's very free flowing. So I like the way that you said that there's no routine with it. You can just go and have fun. Maybe if your gym offers Zumba classes, I suggest taking one. I got into Zumba. I haven't taken it in a while, but when I was managing LA Fitness, I was going through a transitional phase, and I had stopped a current business that I was involved with, and then I had all this extra time on my plate, and I was like, okay, if I don't fill this time with something, I'm going to get super anxious or depressed. So I need to find another outlet. My LA Fitness members coerced me into doing Tuesday night Zumba with them. And let me tell you guys, it's so much fun. I did it every single Tuesday with my members, and I had a blast. And it's like nobody cares. People get intimidated and they're like, "Oh, Zumba, I can't dance, or I don't know what to do." Let me tell you, nobody in there knows what the F they're doing, guys. Like, no, everybody's offbeat. Nobody has it right. Like, the instructor messes up. It's all good. Like, just go in there and just have fun. If your gym offers them, I would suggest maybe trying one out. They're a lot of fun.
Love that.
Mindset work. This is talking a little bit about, we have team calls in our recorded resources about growth versus fixed mindset. I just wanted to briefly touch on this. Taking responsibility, right? Getting out of the victimhood and allowing ourselves to label ourselves with these emotions. So do we have a growth versus fixed mindset when it comes to anxiety and depression? Are we fixed in our ways in that we are stuck with anxiety or depression, or are we more growth minded in understanding it's a choice and that we have control? I will be very transparent right now that I had a therapist tell me I was about, I don't know, maybe 15 years old, 16. So I was young. And I was not very emotionally mature, as no real 15, 16-year-old is. And she told me that I need to understand that what I'm going through right now is a choice and that I have control. And I got upset with that comment. And it's because whenever we victimize ourselves and we label ourselves, we get really offended when somebody tells us that this is more of a choice than what we really think. And I apologize if anybody watching this, maybe that doesn't sit well with you, but I will say now, looking from the other side of it, being a lot more emotionally mature, having gone through bouts and bouts of anxiety and depression and years of therapy and all the other things, now I can reflect on my entire journey and I can really realize it is a lot more of a choice than what I ever thought it was. I really allowed myself to label, and the more we label, the more we manifest it, right? If I'm waking up every day telling myself I have anxiety, I have depression, no shit, I'm gonna have anxiety and depression. That's the story that I'm telling myself, and I'm allowing myself to live out as that main character, right? It's almost like if you wake up every day and you say negative things about your body image, like, oh, I'm fat. You're going to live that, and you're going to make unhealthy food choices and live an unhealthy lifestyle because you are believing and telling yourself that story.
You're proving yourself right.
Right. Exactly. Vic, go
That's why
ahead.
I love self-identification work in the opposite direction. Like if you're learning how to have a new habit, like eating more vegetables or going to the gym, if you can self-identify, like while you're there or after you do it, like, wow, I eat healthy. Wow, I work out. I go to the gym. I'm somebody who's cognizant of their, protein intake. That stuff is more likely to stick because, again, we're telling ourselves that story. We're confirming something about how we identify. So that stuff really goes a long way. It can go for good or for not so good.
Yeah,
Right.
Olivia, I feel like if I were going through that and someone told me like depression is a choice, you have the choice to change, like I would feel very defensive with that too. I love how you explained it. I think another way that you could kind of I guess like fit into the growth versus fixed mindset. Like if you're telling yourself, if you're subscribing to the narrative that I'm just a depressed person, I just have anxiety, I just am anxious, instead of maybe giving yourself an opportunity to change that by saying like, I am a person who is experiencing depression in this season of my life, but I have the opportunity to change it. When you leave that
I love
window
that.
open to say like, okay, this is the growth opportunity versus sticking with I just have depression. I've always been depressed. I'm just depressed. That's fixed versus leaving that door open. So just another way to explain that. I really enjoyed how you explained it though.
No, I really love what you said about a season because, again, we're adults and we go through a lot of shit. Maybe we lose a grandparent or a parent, or a lot can happen, especially right now with job changes and the economy. There's just a lot going on right now that can put a lot of stress on a household or on an individual. So it's okay, and I think that trickles into what I'm about to say here is recognizing the emotion. It's okay to have the emotions, and that's normal. It's okay to be in a season of anxiety and depression. Once again, just like I've been mentioning all throughout the call, it's how we grow with that emotion. It's about how we move forward with it and what we do to cope with it and control it versus staying in that fixed mindset of this is just who I am and this is how it's going to be, right? When anxiety and depression come up, think about the why behind it. What's triggering it? And again, that might take some therapy work as well too. But instead of sitting in the negative emotions, find ways to redirect into the positive. So just I feel like these are some powerful takeaways. I mean, we could do presentations on anxiety and depression and growth and fixed mindset, and then we could do whole presentations on each of these little nuggets too, but just a general overview for sure. All right, then I got into some foods that can help with your mental health. So I found that fattier foods are really good because they help with your brain function and cognitive function, which is scientifically proven to help with anxiety and depression because those are cognitive illnesses. So fattier foods like fatty fish, dark chocolate, turmeric can really help. Turmeric is also an anti-inflammatory property. So I'm not sure if maybe that was on the list because it has more anti-inflammatory, so maybe your receptors will have a better response. Maybe it can help with if you're having some gut issues, things like that. Yogurt, green tea was another one, cashews, and liver beef. Also egg yolks, and I forgot to put those on there, but they did have egg yolks on there. I'm assuming obviously avocados, any higher fatty food like flax seeds, walnuts, chia seeds, things of that sort, olive oil, coconut oil. Those might be great foods that we can incorporate in to help with our overall cognitive function. And that kind of brings up a little thinking point for me is maybe one of the reasons why it's so common in women that, I mean, there's going to be many reasons, but why women suffer more depression and anxiety? Is it because we have lower cognitive function? Is it because we are taught to be on low fat diets and that fat is quote unquote bad for us? People think that fats are bad and they stick to eating 25 to 30 grams of fat per day, which honestly is insufficient for an adult female. Any thoughts on that?
I'm sure there's a correlation there. I am sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure just like diet mentality in general too can lead
Yeah.
to, you know, downregulation of everything. So yeah, of course, I'm sure you're going to have lower mood, and that can get you to start thinking along those lines, like maybe I'm depressed, you know?
Yeah.
But I did want to add that I came across a Harvard study one time that was talking about fasting, like female fasting in particular, and anxiety. And if you are already somebody who struggles with anxiety, if you go too long in between meals, like for example, you're somebody who's like, I never eat breakfast, you know, I wait till lunch. Sorry, I ate, so I might have like spaghetti on my mouth. What they found is those feelings of being hungry, skipping those meals, having a really long fasting window when you do it like over an extended period of time every day, it can actually mimic the feeling of anxiety. And then you find yourself being in somewhat of a loop where you're just like, I'm anxious and therefore I can't eat. Because I think one of the side effects of anxiety is like no appetite, right? And that's what people will start to feel like shaky and whatever. And then now you can't eat, you're anxious, but you know what I mean? You can't get yourself out of that cycle. So I think for people who struggle with anxiety, whether you're on medication or not, definitely need to consider making sure that they eat a healthy breakfast, like one that's high in healthy fats, you know, like avocados and eggs and that type of stuff, just to kind of set your day up a little bit better and help the chance of anxiety not creeping in.
Love that.
Yeah, I love that. Vic, you just gave me another team call idea, maybe a team call about emotional eating. Emotional eating and the psychology behind that.
How have we never talked about that? That's kind of crazy.
I just realized that too. How have we never talked about that? That would be a great segue off of this current call for sure. So if you're somebody where maybe you're looking to incorporate things to help with anxiety and depression and some supplements, I thought I would list some off for you. Ashwagandha is a great one. I actually have it right here with me. I'll find it somewhere because I take it every day. I'll find it. Ashwagandha, yeah, here it is. It's right here. But this regulates the body's ability to sleep and de-stress. I love taking ashwagandha. I notice my sleep is much better whenever I take it personally. I was waking up a lot in the middle of the night and like going to the bathroom and I don't know, just weird. But when I take ashwagandha, I sleep all throughout the night. So I feel like this is a good one. Chamomile as well too. You can drink chamomile tea. You can take it in a supplement form, but it has calming effects, restful relaxation. So does lavender as well too. I also have lavender tea. That's something else you can add in, or lavender pillow spray. I do that every night myself too. I have a spray and it has chamomile and lavender in it. But things like that can also be helpful too. Functional mushrooms are great. They help you with focus, energy, and calmness as well too. Any client that I have that replaces their coffee with maybe a functional mushroom coffee raves about, wait, I just realized like I'm not as anxious this past week. Or like whenever they go to do their weekly check-in form, their stress went from being consistently a 4 and now they're a 1. And then I'm like, so I asked them on their check-in, I noticed that your stress went down to a 1. Like, that's amazing. What did you do differently this past week? And they're like, well, I guess I just added in some functional mushroom coffee or whatever. And I'm like, there we go. There we go. Now the wheels are turning. Functional mushrooms are really powerful for that reason. I also too want to add there, if anybody needs, I'll link the functional mushroom stuff that I like into the Slack channel, but I also have this master blend from the brand that I like, a master blend functional mushroom powder, and you can mix that in with regular coffee too. So if you really like your regular coffee, you can just mix It's just a little bit of that powder in there. That way you get your regular coffee fix, but then you also still get the fix and the benefits of all the functional mushrooms too. Vitamin D3, this is for mood regulation, nerve, and brain health as well. Vitamin D is very important if we're not going to get it from the sun. Maybe if we don't live in a very sunny climate, maybe during the winter months, it's important to supplement that through a supplement. Magnesium helps unwind and promotes restful sleep as well too. Omega-3, we kind of mentioned that with the food, but essential for cognitive function and brain chemistry as well. GABA, this is an amino acid to help produce serotonin. GABA and ashwagandha are two I have found the most common supplements, natural holistic supplements that people will take for anxiety. That also too, if you are going to more of a holistic base therapist, those are going to be some of the two that they will right off the bat recommend to you. Some therapists may right off the bat, if you tell them straight up, I'm a little bit weary about medications or things like that, they will usually right off the bat recommend ashwagandha. I put CBD on here as well for relaxation and for calming. And then as well, if you are open for it, I didn't put it on the slide here, but medical marijuana I know is also proven to help some people as well too, but that may or may not be your wheelhouse, but there's many different things here that we can take. Now, do you have to take every single one of these to help reduce anxiety? Absolutely not. Maybe just find one or two of these things on the list. I personally really like ashwagandha and functional mushrooms myself. Questions, comments, concerns, add-ins? What do you guys think? Any of the supplements that you guys currently use or add in?
Yeah, I put in the chat that I use functional mushrooms from Cured Nutrition. I use their product, and then sometimes I use their like focus product throughout the day. So I was a heavily like Adderall kid back in the day, and so I feel like whenever I got off of Adderall, like I just felt like my brain was so slow, but it was because it had been conditioned to have an additional chemical on top of it. So I think switching over to the functional mushrooms for focus and energy, and then using their sleep products to kind of calm down in the evening, I've seen a big difference with those. I also take the vitamin D3, magnesium, and I am a THC user. So, but I will say going overboard with it, it does create a little bit of anxiety. So I have to like find a middle ground there. And especially if I'm like going to be out in public, I get an even more of an anxious feeling. So it's very environmental dependent, I will say.
Yeah, and that's also interesting. Hannah, I think I mentioned to you before, a dietitian that I follow and I look up to in this space, she posted something the other month about how using marijuana actually has a negative effect on female sex hormones.
If it's a daily use, for sure.
Yeah. Okay. I've been meaning to look more into that myself personally, just out of curiosity. But yeah, I mean, then it goes into that, if our hormones are imbalanced, then our mood is also going to be impaired as well too. They all kind of domino effect off of each other. But if you guys have never tried, maybe if you want, maybe CBD is a little bit too low grade, maybe THC might be too high grade for you. Right in the middle is called Delta 8. And that can be really helpful as well too. I'm more of like a Delta 8 person, but I take like literally just a very tiny amount and I'm knocked out. I'm good.
No, this was great, Olivia. This was really, really, really good.
Thanks. Yeah, Monica, you try functional mushrooms. I'll drop the link into the into the Slack channel for you.
Yeah, Olivia, I've actually had quite a few clients ask me recently. They're like, I saw Olivia post something about functional mushrooms. What does she take? I'm like, I honestly don't know. I need to ask her. So yeah, dropping in the Slack, I think a lot of people would respond well to that for sure.
Yeah, I like the OM brand. I like them for quality and for taste. It doesn't taste like mushrooms or dirt or earthy or anything like that. They have like hot cocoa, all those things, and the hot cocoa tastes like a creamy hot cocoa. It tastes really good. So, but you get all of the benefits from it. And their hot cocoa also has ashwagandha in it too.
Amazing.
Yeah. So I'll put it all into the Slack channel, but that's all. Anybody else have any questions, comments, concerns?
Monica, did you enjoy this? Find it helpful? Some brain gains?
Yeah, definitely. It
Good,
was good.
good. Vic, you have anything else to add, or Leslie?
I don't. I did want to add that I took an adaptogen supplement. Adaptogens like ashwagandha. They all kind of fall under that umbrella before I flew. You know this because it was the flight to Chicago, and I have really bad flight anxiety. I was like cool as a cucumber, so that really works. It really
Wow,
does.
I love
So there
that.
you go. If you need any proof, I'm your gal. Thank you, Olivia. This was
Yes.
awesome.